Hello, and welcome to my social justice presentation. My name is Sarah Hassan, and I am a master's student in the Industrial and Organizational Psychology program at Adler University. I'm very excited to be talking about the incredible journey I experienced over the last few months. Let's get started. My practicum site is called National Zakat Foundation, or NZF for short. NZF is a nonprofit organization that provides services for the local Muslim Canadian community, such as debt relief, food assistance, housing support, and other essentials. Nissa Homes, or NH for short, is a project under NZF that provides transitional homes for domestically abused women and children. They have managed to open 6 homes throughout Canada just from donations. Although in Canada there is government assistance for people in need, NZF goes beyond what is already available. The word zakat in Arabic means charity. In the Islamic religion, every Muslim is obligated to pay 2.5% of their annual savings to one or more of the 8 categories of people, which I will mention in the next slide. Zakat is then calculated and distributed based on specific criteria and conditions. Part of the criteria is that if there is a local need, then a Muslim must give charity within the community that they reside in. There are 2 parts to the zakat donation, the part of the giver and the part of the receiver. As I mentioned earlier, zakat is obligatory on every Muslim as long as they are mature, sane, free, and own a specific value of gold and silver called nisab. On the NZF website, there is a financial calculator that calculates for the donor the 2.5% that they owe based on their assets, liabilities, and nisab. On the receiving end, according to Islam, there are 8 categories of people to whom zakat can be distributed. The poor, meaning those in financial distress. The needy, meaning those who live in difficulty such as a disability debilitating them or homelessness. Zakat administrators, meaning those who are employed to distribute zakat. Those whose hearts are to be reconciled, meaning those whom have entered Islam and have been shunned by their community. Those to be emancipated, meaning releasing a captive or slave from bondage. Those who are in debt. The zakat money can help them pay off their debt. Those who are working for the cause of God, meaning those who are spreading the message of Islam. And the wayfarer, meaning those who are stranded or traveling with few resources, such as refugees. The image provided here explains the distribution process to how zakat is first calculated by the donor, which is then processed by NZF, who distribute it to locals in need based on their application assessment. At the HQ office, my work sometimes involved Nissa Homes, which is a project under NZF. Nissa Homes is a group of transitional homes or long-term shelters for immigrant, refugee, non-status, and Muslim women who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. Culture is vital to immigrant, refugee, and Muslim women, and as such, Nissa Homes works hard to provide these women with a sense of self and personal identity. By providing this environment, Nissa Homes hopes to enable women to feel safe and supported and to develop the tools needed to achieve independence and self-sustainability. As you can see here, Nissa Homes provides a variety of services for the women and children in-house, as well as after they move out. NH offer their shelter and support in-house for 3 months, and after they move out, NH supports the women up to 6 months financially by helping them with rent and furniture costs, as well as referring the women to programs and resources that they don't know about. NH's goal is to bridge the gap from homelessness to permanent housing by offering structure, supervision, support, life skills, and in some cases, education and training. When I began my internship at NZF, the executive director asked my opinion on a couple of new business ventures that he wanted to explore. The first idea involved opening a new physical location, which I gave my feedback on how to expand and operate. Based on my ambition, I was tasked with providing the market research, as well as create and present a business proposal to the board of directors. The second idea was how to expand NZF's online presence by creating a crowdfunding platform such as GoFundMe. My third task was during the month of Ramadan, where NZF and NH's donations increased by at least 150%, because it is the month when the zakat of fasting is due. During this time, the social media pages are twice more active than they are throughout the year, and so I was tasked with responding to inquiries regarding monetary and other types of donations. My fourth task wasn't really a task, but a project that I chose to participate in. Every year just before Ramadan, NZF and NH's marketing departments come up with advertisements to bring awareness to their cause. This year, Ramadan was in May 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic, and so the marketing team struggled with finding actors who were willing to participate in the commercial. I volunteered to play the role of a domestically abused wife and mother, which you will see in the next few slides. Lastly, I worked closely with the HR department, so I worked on a couple of tasks related to employee onboarding, engagement, and team building activities. As I mentioned before, my work at the practicum site involved both HR-related tasks as well as participation in the marketing department. By working with HR, I was able to help provide a smooth online transitioning process that aided the employees to focus more on donor work than on internal organizational aspects, as NZF is still a young company with only a few employees in each department. In the marketing department, I participated in meetings discussing campaigns and strategies to increase brand awareness. This in turn led to helping more clients each month, as there was a surprisingly long waiting list of people requiring help, specifically refugees. And by supporting the increasing number of refugees in Canada, NZF is reducing the gaps of systemic barriers, and specifically by providing services that are culturally sensitive, such as serving the Muslim women at Nisa homes. I noticed that the bulk of the people who applied for zakat were regular, average folks who are mainly struggling financially. Some of them even above average, being doctors and lawyers in their home countries, but cannot practice their profession in Canada upon their immediate arrival to the country. Most of the applicants are refugees, and this made me realize that the only reason they aren't getting the full government support they could possibly receive is because of systemic barriers and the lack of credentials recognition. And sometimes the most support the government can offer isn't enough because these people don't have any other income or the residential status to receive that income. It then dawned on me that zakat is a form of equitable justice, kind of like how we pay taxes that should be used towards serving the public in terms of healthcare, education, and any other form of public service. I also realized that we aren't putting enough pressure on our government as to how our taxes should be used, because most of us either aren't educated of these opportunities or do not simply care about societal justice as long as we're lucky enough to experience privilege. This picture represents the 5 pillars of Islam. The third pillar, zakat, is often called the forgotten pillar, as many people tend not to follow the correct and calculated guideline required for this obligatory charity. As a Muslim myself, I didn't know how zakat is calculated until I worked at NZF. I also didn't know who is obligated to pay it and who can receive it. I just had a general and misguided assumption that the rich give to the poor, and because of that assumption, the poor, in my opinion, were just in third world countries. One of the projects I worked on with NZF and NH was participating with my 2 sons in a commercial to bring awareness on domestic violence. As I was getting ready to play my part, I asked my supervisor how to style my character, and she told me to dress simple with makeup to show bruising on my face if possible. The director disagreed with the makeup look and said that it looked too cliché, or in other words, too overplayed. My supervisor was annoyed at this comment and said that this is exactly why we need to bring awareness on the subject, because too many people don't see it, literally and figuratively. It may be cliché to see a woman bruised by domestic violence, but this is her reality. After the video was posted on NZF and NH's social media pages, 2 types of negative comments were prevalent. First, comments from outside the Muslim community attacking the Middle Eastern culture and Islamic religion as being oppressive. And second, comments from the Muslim community accusing NZF and NH for presenting a negative image of the culture and religion. However, what surprised me was the fact that the blame was placed on factors that did not address the actual oppressors or abusers. I realized that received these comments because of the fact that NH predominantly houses Muslim women, which is not an attestation to domestic violence stemming from a particular culture or religion, as it is present globally, regardless of religion, country, race, or socioeconomic status.
Where were you? Where'd you go when I was at work? Where'd you go? Didn't I say not to go because of your face? And you don't ever listen to me. Was your brothers there? Was your father there?
You're gonna prevent me from going to my parents' house?
Parents' house? By looking at like that and with your kids? What did your father say? What did your mother say?
Your voice, the kids can hear you.
I don't care if they can hear me. You're a liar. You're a liar.
I didn't say anything. No,
You're
no,
a
no.
liar, man. It's fine. How's that fine? For you, it's fine to go there, but not for me, because I look like a goddamn fool.
No, I'm scared. It's okay, baby. We're gonna be okay.
Because the pandemic hit as I was doing my market research, it was an easy transition from working in the office to working from home, as all my work was online and solo for the time being. However, because the pandemic also affected my family, it wasn't easy for me to work from home during the regular office hours. I managed to complete the business proposal for my market research and presented it through a Zoom call. The pandemic is also the reason that my children and I participated in the commercial for Nissa Homes. During this time, I learned about the heartbreaking phone calls to Nissa, where wives and mothers didn't have a chance to leave their homes because their husband was always home and there was nowhere for them to go. Beginning in March, the number of calls received on various domestic violence hotlines soared exponentially. It's tough in a situation like this because, on the one hand, there is the worry of a woman and her children's safety from their abusive family member, and on the other hand, there is the worry of their safety as well as others' safety from the coronavirus illness. The measures taken in shelters during the pandemic was to keep the families already living there and refuse other families from entering the shelter. At one point, the threat of the illness loomed too much that the shelters completely closed down, sending their families to hotels. Worrying about the coronavirus illness is understandable. However, while most of the population recovers from the virus if they become afflicted, recovering from the trauma of domestic violence is not as easy. The traumatic events of domestic violence can lead to contagion of societal illness, as the victim and their affiliates continue to suffer while the abuser gets away with their actions. And together, they unintentionally spread the remnants of their personal catastrophes. One of the things I noticed through my SJP experience was the lack of education that people had on a few topics. First, the lack of education on the causes and consequences of domestic violence, the lack of knowledge among the Muslim community on their charitable duty, and the lack of premarital education in all communities. As social media has gained an influential platform over the years, and especially among Generation Z, they will be the ones who will need our collective skill set to help them avoid following in the shallow footsteps of our generation and the generations before us. Therefore, I plan on using social media as an awareness and educational platform to educate young women specifically on how to build themselves for career profiling, as well as assess their mental state and readiness for marriage or long-term relationships. Part of this plan is to implement a program for premarital couples to help them determine whether they are psychologically prepared for the responsibility and burden of marriage. I kind of already touched on the subject throughout the presentation. However, there is one thing I feel has added to my perspective, which is how necessary it is to contribute to my community. At the beginning of this course, I learned the difference between equity and equality, and like many others, I often conflated these two very distinct terms. I've come to understand how our society operates under the premise of equality, which has been used as a blanket justification over the years as to what minority groups and protected classes have come to see as injustice. This is where social justice and equity charge in to distribute the wealth, opportunities, and privileges within society. It's become clear to me how imperative education on social justice is, and I think it's necessary to teach a version of this class in at least high school. Alfred Adler believed in a different kind of education system because he knew that social justice or injustice is bred from the early years, during school, and from educators. Therefore, I plan to encourage the education of social justice through the possible platforms I have access to, such as social media and through NZF. Part of NZF's mission is to educate Muslims on their charitable duty, and I think that incorporating that duty through a social justice lens will be impactful, especially on millennials and future generations. I hope to continue working with NZF to build this educational program, which could include workshops held in schools and hopefully grow to be implemented in the school board as an essential subject of education. This concludes my presentation. I want to acknowledge my hard work and my support system throughout this past year. I had to complete my first year of my master's program during a pandemic while being home with 4 children and my husband working in an essential business. It was only by the grace of God, my supportive husband, family, and friends that I was able to persevere and make this presentation for you today. Thank you for watching.